Thank you for joining me. In today's brief video, we're going to talk about some of the certifications you have to make when you're filling out the PPP application. So what are you certifying to? How has this language changed over time? And what does it mean to you as a business owner? What we saw was that the SBA's interim ruling pushed a lot of liability to the borrower from the lender, and you're going to see that in the language. They also decided to strengthen many of the provisions, and in one case, they loosened them. And we added attestation language to hold harmless the lender. Again, that kind of shift of liability. We also saw an expansion of who certifies. So as opposed to having the business and each 20% owner having to initial and certify, we are now talking about an authorized representative. That authorized representative is going to be you as the business owner, more than likely. So the first certification, there is no comparable language in the first version of the application, and ultimately all you are doing is identifying that you were in existence on February the 15th, 2020, and you had employees. The second certification, exact same language as was under the first version. And so here the applicant is certifying eligibility based off of the impact of COVID-19 to your operations. In the third certification, we're seeing a clarifying and an alignment of how those funds are going to be used. In the V1 version, we did not identify that mortgage was actually only the interest aspect of those mortgage payments, and then we lumped in the non-payroll cost to align by reference to the PPP rules, ultimately identifying that those utility costs, rent costs, those costs that are non-payroll costs had to have been in place February 15th or earlier. We then also identify that you would knowingly use these dollars for appropriate purposes. And finally, that may hold legally liable and may pursue criminal fraud charges is a step back from just the pursue criminal fraud charges. Gives there a little bit broader enforcement in terms of the discretion that might happen over time, and then we also introduce that may hold legally liable. Certification 4, ultimately, document, document, document. We don't want to commingle these funds. We have to attest that they are going to be for appropriate purposes, and that the applicant will provide the lender that documentation. Again, shifting that liability over to the borrower. Under certification number 5, now we move the language to a personal certification. You are identifying that you understand, I understand that the forgiveness will be provided. And it takes away the ambiguity as opposed to it is anticipated that 25% will go to non-payroll costs. We now remove that anticipated language. So that ambiguity is gone. 25% non-payroll is going to be the cap of your non-payroll forgiveness opportunity here. And then under certification 6, there's a lot of confusion around SBA loans and especially the EIDL versus the PPP. You can get both. We do have some language I can provide you if that still is a question for you after the ADA's correspondence out to its members, but you can get both. And that's further clarified versus the version 1 of this of no loan under this program. 2, will not receive another loan under the Paycheck Protection Program, making that as clear as possible. Certification number 7, a lot of legalese here, but it's expanded to include all the information provided regardless of source. Again, taking some of that liability off of the lender's side of things and acknowledging and understanding, not just a realization in terms of that you understand that you did not knowingly make any false statements. Now there are some of those enforcement numbers here in terms of how much can they fine you and how long can you be in jail. This of course is something that we want to take seriously. Make sure that you're providing accurate information, that we're using this for its intended purposes, and that you're relying on actual documented expenditures from 2019. And these kind of scare pieces of language, just you don't have to worry about them as much if you're doing it the right way. And then finally, certification 8. let's remove liability from lender on loan calculation amounts. So while the lender is likely going to be incredibly helpful in terms of helping you navigate, the final ruling by the SBA that came out pulled away the liability from the lender to do any of these calculations, but just to identify that you provided information and you provided that amount. So there is a good amount of information that we can find from these disclaimers. Again, a lot of this was just tracking and articulating that movement of liability from the lender to the borrower. I am glad that they provided that clarifying language that you cannot take an additional PPP loan versus just a loan under this program. That EIDL loan, PPP loan, you can have them at the same time. There are some nuances there. If you've got questions, that's what we're here for. But I'm glad that we were able to talk through these certifications. I don't want you to sign a document that you don't have some understanding of what it is that you're applying for. Thank you very much.